reading The Invisible Way by Reshad Feild. It is a book which was published 1979. And Reshad was in Turkey, he's back in England, and he describes his meeting Noor at Elizabeth's in London. This is a love story, a story about love and death. He and Noor are now on their way to visit John in Wales. They have been Stonehenge, and we are now at chapter 8. They're not entitled anything, there's chapters. Chapter 8. Ah, there you are. John had pushed his wheelchair out onto a veranda on the first floor of the house and was looking down at us. Forgive me for not being downstairs to greet you, but you arrived earlier than I expected, and it takes me a while to get this contraption and myself down the stairs. But come in, come in. I've been looking forward to meeting you ever since Elizabeth wrote to me. Do you want some help? Noor asked. No, my dear, he replied. I'm used to it. You two go inside and I'll be with you shortly. We went into the front hall. My first impression was the incongruity of the furnishings. We were in the heart of Wales, yet the floor was carpeted with a profusion of oriental rugs and two stunning tribal rugs from Anatolia hung on the walls. The furniture was mostly Mid-Eastern, inlaid with mother-of-pearl and ivory. Facing the front door was a long walnut table with a sizable collection of photographs. Some were quite old, but they were unmistakably of Konya. I recalled what I had once been told there by the tomb of Mevlana. Remember, this is your home. And for a moment here in Wales, I felt as though I were in two places at once. We soon heard a bump on the staircase as John carefully manipulated his wheelchair down the last step. We went to greet him, and not knowing what to do, we shook hands rather formally. The lower part of his body was very wasted, but I was impressed with the extraordinary strength of his chest and arms. It was as though the life in the upper section of his body more than compensated for the weakness in his legs. Come along then, he said, pushing himself forward. This is my special treat to have you here. Let's go and sit in the other room. I'm afraid this one is rather cluttered with bits and pieces of memorabilia. But then, you've recognized some things, haven't you? Well, it was a bit of a surprise. You'd hardly expect to find all these objects here. I've just come back from Konya, and it makes me wonder quite where I am, I said, laughing. Well, it is perfectly possible to be in more than one place at a time. It's all done with mirrors, isn't it? We followed him into the other room. It was obviously his study. The desk was covered with papers, books lined the shelves, and there was a deep leather armchair by the fire into which he sank. Lifting himself up with his huge hands while we held on to the wheelchair. Sorry about the mess, he said, but it is one room no one cleans up. That way I know where everything is. I have a wonderful woman who looks after me. You'll meet her. But even she doesn't come past this door. Now then, there's some whiskey in the cupboard over there, glasses and water. We'll get some ice in a minute, he said, pressing a bell by the chair. We've a lot to talk about, but before we say anything further, I would like to ask you both if you could stay in Wales for an extended period. Would that be all right? Actually, Elizabeth instructed me to ask you so that you could perhaps learn some very specific things. I could never refuse her a request, and it would be a joy to have you here. Oh, 40, he said as the woman in her early 60s bustled into the room. Have you got the ice? Yes, Mr. John, but I'm afraid we have run out of soda water. I'll get some in the morning. I'm ever so sorry. Never mind, he replied. There are many more important things than soda water. I want you to meet my guests. They are invited to stay indefinitely. I shall tell them all about you when you've gone out of the room and how they are to behave when you are around. Mr. John, she replied. I saw that she was blushing. You two keep on the right side of 40, he said. She rules this house and I have to do what I'm told these days. But she's put up with me for over 8 years in this condition and I would do anything for her. She's a wonderful woman, John went on after she had left and I had poured a whiskey out for him. I couldn't do without her. She does virtually everything in the house. I can't get out shopping anymore and I can't cook, so she's a godsend to me. Her real name is Miss Hilda Ford, but we call her Fordy. She was with my brother and his family for over 30 years, but then he died and his family had grown up, so she came here. Fordy is of a dying race of people who give up their lives completely to serve others. There used to be people like her in most of the families who could afford servants, but I'm afraid that's all gone now. I'm very lucky, though, I know. She won't leave, and she will outlive me easily. I've made arrangements so that she will be able to retire, enjoy the rest of her life in comfort. But she's very jealous, so you must be careful. Our first hours with John were timeless. The conversation was simple. He asked us many questions and told stories from his long relationship with Elizabeth. I wondered why they hadn't married, but I did not want to ask. Occasionally he said something that gave us a hint as to why we had come. I noticed the kindness and thoughtfulness of the way in which he had put us at ease. But Noor was very quiet, and eventually I noticed this. Why are you so silent? He asked. Elizabeth said, you had lots to say. It's no good being shy around me. We haven't yet got all that much time, and there's much to share. I noticed then that Noor was crying. She was looking at John, and tears were rolling down her cheeks. I went to put my arm around her, but she shook her head. Couldn't all this suffering have been avoided? She asked John. John smiled. Come on, he said. It's time for lunch. Give me a hand up, both of you. The table was beautifully set with salads, cold cuts, cheese, fruit, and a large jar of black olives. I was just about to ask something about what had happened before lunch when John turned to me. Do you like olives? He asked. Yes, very much, I replied. Once again, there was that déjà vu experience I was reminded of a day in Turkey when my teacher had said almost the exact words. He had proceeded to teach me how to prepare olives, but it was only later that I had realized he was actually teaching me something about transformation. I doctor them myself, John went on. When we have more time, I must teach you how to do it yourself. I think they taste quite different from the ones you buy in the shops, don't you? Over coffee I told him the story of the olives. He laughed. It's a small world, isn't it? I read what you wrote about your travels because Elizabeth had the book and lent it to me. I couldn't help chuckling at the situations you got yourself into. As you gather, I've spent some time in the Middle East myself. I used to work for the diplomatic service at one time, so I was able to travel a great deal and had many opportunities to study the dervishes. They were wonderful people. It was perhaps the richest time of my life, being with them. I used to get away for weekends and holidays in the mountains of Iran, Afghanistan, and in North Africa. But for me, there were none greater than those who followed the way of Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi. I know you have studied, so we may be able to get into the subject very deeply. It is time that more people in the West understood the meaning of completion, for I believe our time to be a period in history when there is a very real chance that the ancient sciences will be brought to light, and there can be cooperation between the different schools of knowledge. It was so once before in Anatolia. If you remember at the time of Mevlana, 700 years ago, perhaps we'll write a book together and see if we can explain something about this in our own language, from the experiences we have had. But enough discussion for now. I have a lovely room for you both, and Fordy got flowers in today from the garden. She only comes in during the morning, she said as an aside, unless she comes all over queer, as she puts it, and then she rides steaming down the hill from the village on her bicycle, so don't be surprised if she turns up at odd times. She's normally right in her instincts, as I sometimes get bad cramps and can't manage to wheel myself into the bathroom and all that. Anyway, why don't you rest for a couple of hours? It has been a long drive for you, and I like to have some time to read in the afternoon. Our room was so beautifully prepared that we both stood in the doorway for several minutes to take it all in. The furnishings were simple, but gave such a warmth to the space that we felt like familiar guests. A finely crocheted bedspread covered the raised mahogany bed, and an early 19th century dressing table and chair were placed against a wall. A deep armchair with a reading lamp and table faced the door. 2 other small occasional tables, bearing bowls of red and yellow roses, and a large Victorian plant stood by the long French windows. I remembered the first sight of John on his veranda, but I had not noticed then that there was another veranda on the other side of the front door. We walked to the window and looked out into the countryside. Everything was perfectly green. A river threaded its way through the valley, sparkling in the afternoon sunlight. I spotted a man walking down the riverbank, and we could just see the light reflected off his fishing rod as he stopped every now and again and carefully cast his fly to the raising trout. Below, the road up which we had driven moved on to the left, skirting a small wood, and rose up steeply over the brow of the hill. God, it's beautiful, Noor said. But why is there such pain? Look at John, eaten away with cancer, paralyzed and dying, while we are whole and have all the world in front of us. I wonder why this happened to a man like him. Why to anyone, I suppose. Perhaps that is what we come to find out. After all, what is death? If you consider it, it's not what it appears to be. I had a long think about it last night, realizing that a good part of the time we are living, we are half dead anyway, wasting energy in silly arguments and confusion. Noor became silent again. The sun cast long shadows from the willow trees, and we watched a heron glide down from the wood to take up its position at the edge of a pool. She put her hand on my arm. "Will you make love with me?" she asked. No one had ever spoken to me in quite that way before. There was a stillness and presence in her manner that allowed me the freedom to love her in a way I had not known before. It was quite a different thing to consciously accept being together in that moment. Time and space were fused in a sense of mutual yearning. Yet it was not a yearning to return to anywhere but where we were. Sentimentality gave way to knowledge, and knowledge to understanding. Subtler and subtler energies were transformed. For a brief moment it was possible to understand a great saying from the Quran: "Wheresoever you look, there is the face of God." The key was in something I had been told years ago in connection with women herself, that she is already complete if she can accept that she is truly recognized in love. I had seen Noor from a deeper level of understanding which helped open us both to this other world. She, in her turn, led me on in the play we call love. We were deeply grateful to be alive. And I stop this here because it is Sunday, the 13th of April.